So those of you who don't know what I've been doing here is I've made a brush up silicon rubber mold and a mother mold, and I'm using a new material, at least new to me. It's called Freeformair. And I've been using this to make the mother mold, so I'm figuring out and testing all the different properties. It's finished pretty hard, and I'm making legs for this now, so when I flip it over it's perfectly level to be able to do casting. I've already figured out the balance and the level of all of this, so everything's good to go. And I've tack glued the legs on currently using super glue. I use Zap-A-Gap cyanoacrylate, and I've used it's called Zip Kicker, which I've put into this bulb bladder, and I actually took a hypodermic needle and glued it to the top of this, so I have a much more precise application of the Zip Kicker, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So anyway, all these two have been tacked on. I'm going to glue this guy on. I leveled it out. I would have shown the process, but it really got rather loud. It involved a radial arm saw and just me multiple times getting these into the right place. But I've marked my spot, and I'm about to do on this one what I've already done on these two, which is I'm just going to tack glue it so that I can test it by flipping over before I go ahead and use the Freeformair to adhere these. So I'm putting it right back in the same spot that I had it originally. I'm going to go ahead and test level it, which that's pretty spot on. And then I'm going to hit it with the Zip Kicker, just let gravity go down, and that should glue it. Now I'm not considering this to be permanent. This is the first time I've actually done this with this material. So I just wanted to hold it in place so that I can apply the Freeformair. I'm going to go ahead and just run a bead of super glue there, and there. Then hit it with my Zip Kicker. This stuff accelerates the kick rate of the super glue. So that's really just to adhere it. I've used hot glue in the past, just different things to try to do what I'm doing right now. But one of the really cool things, if this works, and I'm hoping it will, about the Freeformair is that if it sticks to itself the way it says that it does, then I'll be able to build up in layers this material to adhere these legs to it. So I'm just testing to see if I got it level, which it should be perfectly level. And it's good enough for me. So I'm going to flip this back over again. Put it back the way I had it. And now I'm going to mix up some of the Freeformair. So this is round 2 of me trying to film myself doing this. The first time I did this, I had the camera pointed in the wrong spot, so nobody could see what I was doing. You could hear me talking, but anyway. So I'll describe the way that this material works this time, and hopefully you guys can see. It's kind of funny, I call this multitasking, and I was corrected by my brother-in-law over the holidays that it's not actually multitasking. But what I mean by that is that I've got a Super Bowl party I'm going to be going to later today, so I wanted to get this started and let it just be setting while I'm gone, and I'm going to then come back and probably build it up a little bit further just to strengthen it. So what I'm referring to as multitasking is that I've applied it and it's setting, and I'm gone doing something else, and it's actually curing and setting. So something's happening, but I'm not physically doing it. But I think of it in that way with molding and casting a lot. That you can pour a mold, stick it in the pressure pot, and turn around and sculpt for an hour, and then demold it and set it up and do it again. So alright, so Freeformair is 1:1 by volume, and so you just kind of pinch it out and eyeball it, get it so it's roughly the same amount of material, and then you just knead it together. I'm not completely sold yet on the time-saving properties of this material. Cleanup and setup seems to be a bit better than plaster as far as just making a mess goes. But this kneading process, I mean, you're really doing it by eye, and you're just trying to get a uniform color to it. But you can't, I mean, you've got plenty of working time with it, but you can't really mix a large quantity of it. So the shell I did right here, I think, was probably more like 9 batches of what I'm doing right now. So it's me doing this and then putting it on, and then doing this and then putting it on, and then letting it sit overnight. But if this sticks to itself as well as they claim, what this is going to do is going to be really freaking cool, because you can, as I was describing earlier, do the multitasking thing, and if you don't have a deadline, you can slowly build this up and strengthen it. Which you can do with plaster, but plaster tends to have a problem sticking to itself after it's completely cured. You can reactivate it a little bit by adding water to the surface that you're going to be adding more plaster to, but it's not like really gluing to it. It's not like Abe's epoxy where you can just keep building it up and building it up. I'm hoping that this material acts like Abe's epoxy. The consistency of it, you've got an A and a B part, and which is A and B? Yeah, the B part, which is the white part of the material, really looks and feels a lot like non-shrink, self-hardening spackle. It's very chalky. And then the gray part of this, I'm assuming, has the binder in it, and it's a bit stickier. As you can see on my finger, there's kind of like a stickiness to it. When I was making the shell mold, I'd assumed, because water cleanup meant that it was water soluble, and so I used water to smooth everything out, and I was right. It didn't seem to inhibit or affect anything. So I'm not really worried about it being chalky. And I'm finding also, unlike Abe's epoxy, which you can actually roll it like that, you can do this with this, but it's not as effective as kind of squishing and then just blending that way. Or the other one I found is to fold it over and then compress, just trying to get this stuff mixed. The working time I read on the tech sheet was 4 hours. That seemed to be accurate. I didn't have any problem with it still being flexible. So what I'm going to do here is basically use it as glue and adhere these feet by using this material, and hopefully it'll stick to itself. And see how it's sticking to my glove like that? I'm going to put that right there for now. I'm going to switch out gloves. To prevent that, I can probably just dip my fingers in water, which I'm going to do, but hoping I can just see if that corrects that. Yeah, so it's not sticking to me anymore. And once again, these legs are really just to keep the thing level. Just not wanting... I think water should probably... Let's get that in place. Around and try to blend it with water. See how it's sticking to the glove? A little bit frustrating. So normally I make a shell mold like this using plaster, and I'll make, as far as prep goes, I would have already ready to go a bunch of little kind of football shaped balls of hemp to reinforce it, and I would do the plaster in 3 layers. I would do a surface coat, and while that's still setting, I would then dip the plaster balls into a new batch of plaster and lay it on. Okay, so the water is allowing it to not stick to me. You know, another thing you can use too to probably keep it from sticking to you is chalk or talc powder. Just powder your gloves. I haven't tried that with this material yet, but the water seems to be working. So this, once again, this is the first time I've tried to get this material to stick to itself when the material is completely